All right, guys, so now we can create a profile, we can edit it from our dashboard. Now we want the ability to add experiences and education from our dashboard. So we're going to create a new folder in our components. Let me just close all these up. So in components, let's say new folder, add dash, we'll do add dash, should we put these in? Initially I had add experience and add education in their own folders. But I guess we could do add credentials and then put both files in here just to kind of compact this a little bit. So we'll say new file add dash experience. I'm sorry, we want to do like this, add experience.js. All right, we might as well add the other file as well, add education.js. Okay, so we'll start with the add experience. So this is going to be a class-based component, and it's going to be called add experience. Okay, we're going to export default down below. And as you can see, we're creating a lot of components here, so this stuff should start to stick in your head. I know it's confusing at first, but once you keep doing this over and over, you keep creating components, you keep adding connect, and you keep bringing in your Redux state, it should really start to click how you do this. And then you should, or hopefully you should, start to get some ideas on building, either additional features after this course to this application, or building your own stuff using React, Redux, Node, Express, Mongo, all these technologies. At least that's my hope, if I did my job right. So let's bring in some stuff here. So we're going to need some stuff from the router. We're going to need link, and we're also going to need with router, because when we submit the form to add an experience, I just want it to redirect. So if we want to redirect from an action, then we need to use with router. So we want to bring that in from React router DOM. And a lot of this stuff is going to seem repetitive, because it is. I mean, programming is repetitive. You learn to create a component, hook up Redux and all that, and then it's just creating the different components that you want in your application. So we are repeating ourselves quite a bit. There's really no way around that. So we want to import a bunch of form components like text field group. I shouldn't say a bunch, just two. We just need text field group, and we're going to bring that in from /common/text field group. And then we also want the text area group. Whoops. All right, we want the text area field group, because we do have one text area. It's the description, I believe. Like that. And then we need connect, because this is a container. And we need prop types. All right, we're also going to need an action for the adding the experience, but I'm not going to bring that in just yet. Now we're going to have quite a few form fields, so we're going to need a constructor with some state. So let's say constructor, and we'll pass in props here, and then super props, and then we'll create our state. Okay, so our state is going to have company. We're going to have title. Remember, this is for the experience. Location. From. To. Current. So if it's their current job or whatever experience. It's just that's gonna be set to false by default. Description errors should be an object, and then we're also gonna have disabled. All right, which will be set to false, because if they click the current checkbox, then I want disabled to be true. And what that's going to do is it's going to black out the to field, okay, if they check current. So now what we'll do is go down to our render, and actually before we deal with the render, let's deal with Redux. So we'll export connect. Okay, now remember we used with router because we're going to want to do a redirect. That means we have to wrap this in with router. Oops. Make sure you have 2 parentheses at the end. And inside connect, we'll say map state to props, which we haven't created yet. So we'll do that. All right, so we're going to want to bring in profile. We want to deal with the profile state, and we want the errors as well. So state.errors. All right, so that'll bring it in from the reducer. Then let's take the add experience component and let's put our prop types. Oops, that should be lowercase p. Kind of weird how they do the prop types, I think. And we're going to have here profile, which is an object, errors, which is also an object. And there we go. All right, so now we hooked up our properties, our state to props from Redux. Now we're going to add our form fields and all the markups. So let's go to our return inside the render. Actually, right above it, let's bring in our errors from the state. So we'll say const, we'll use destructuring and say const errors equals this dot state. All right, and if this still confuses you, the destructuring, this is part of ES6 or ES 2015. It's the same as doing errors equals this dot state dot errors. Okay, think of it as when you use the curly braces, it pulls errors out. Okay, so we don't have to do dot errors here. We're pulling it out as opposed to assigning it like we are here. Just in case that confuses you. Because I know that I kind of didn't really get that for a little while. So in here, let's see, we're going to, we'll just type it out, I guess, instead of copying from the theme. So we'll say add experience. I mean, this class here, we're not actually using for anything. I just like to have it, you know, just for the markup, for organization. And then we want a container to push everything to the middle. And then we want a row. Okay, we're going to have an 8-column div, so call MD8, but we want it in the middle, so we want to add MAuto, margin auto. And inside here, I want a link to go back to the dashboard, so we're going to say link to /dashboard. And let's give this a class name of BTN Lite. Okay, and for the text, we're just going to say go back. All right, so under the link, we're going to have an H1 with the class name of display-4 and text-center. And then we're going to say add experience. All right, then we'll have a paragraph with the text of lead. Whoops. Paragraph, text of lead, and text center. And then we're just going to say add any job or position that you have had in the past or current. Okay, so underneath that, we're just going to put in a small tag with the class of display or d-block. Let's also do a padding bottom 3. So it's the same format as the create profile and edit profile. Whoops, that should be pb-3. And we're just going to say star equals required fields. All right, so now we're ready for our form. But before we do that, let's actually just save this and let's add it to our router so we can actually access this page. So we'll go to our app.js and we'll bring this in. So let's bring in add experience, and it's going to be from, and we put it inside of a folder called add credentials. Oops, didn't mean to do that. Add credentials / add experience. And then we're just going to add a protected route. So this will be / add experience. Component will be add experience. All right, so let's make sure we can actually go to it. So if I click on add experience, there we go, good. So now we're going to add our fields. So let's go back to our add experience.js, and we're going to go right under the small tag we just created. And I'm going to paste the stuff in. Let's create a form. Let's say on submit equals this dot on submit. And then I'm going to paste in fields one by one. So first one is going to be a text field group. It's going to be the company. So you can see the value is the state. On change is always going to be on change. Error is going to be errors dot whatever the name is, company. So that's that. Next one is going to be, I'm going to save this just to format it. Next one will be job title. It has the name of title. This dot state dot title is the value. Errors dot title is the error. All right, next one is going to be the location. Okay, so same thing basically. Under that, we're going to have an H6, and we're going to say from date. Okay, so from date, and we can actually use a text field group for the date field as well. Just make sure that you pass in the type of date, okay, or else it'll be text. So you want that. Underneath that, we'll put another H6, and we're going to say to date, and then we'll pass that in. All right, now notice right here we have the disabled, and it's set to this.state.disabled. If this is true, then disabled will be put in here. If it's not, then nothing will be put in here. Okay, because we need to change the state on the current checkbox, which we're going to create next. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to type this next one in by hand, the checkbox. So let's put a div with the class of form-check, and let's do mb-4. Okay, and then in here we're going to have an input. I'm not going to create a special component for this, but it's going to be type checkbox. What the heck? So type checkbox. Let's put in a class name, bootstrap class of form-check-input. Let's put a name of current and a value of this.state.current. Let's put in checked, which is also going to be this.state.current. It's either going to be true or false. And then let's do on change, which will be, of course, this dot on change. Of course not. This is where it's going to be. This is different because when we check this box, we want to change the disabled state so that this will change. So we're actually going to have a method called onCheck. All right, so we're going to create that. And then finally, we just want an ID of current. All right, now we're going to put a label with this checkbox, or else no one's going to know what it is. So underneath, let's say label, we'll give it a class name of form-check-label, and we'll say current for the HTML4. Now in React, you can't have a for attribute with your labels. You have to use HTML4, or I should say in JSX, which is used with React. And then in here, we're just going to say current job, like that. All right, and then the last thing is going to be the description. So I'm going to paste that in. It's just a text area field group. So we'll go right below this div and paste that in. It's just the job description. And then under that, we just want our input with the type of submit. And we'll add a couple classes. Block and MT4. All right, so let's see what it looks like. Okay, so we're getting an error. Text field group does not contain text field group. What on earth does that mean? Did I bring it in wrong? Text field group. What? Text field group. Export text field group. That's fine. We've been using it. Oh, I put curly braces around these. When you bring in a component, you don't use the curly braces. All right, save that. And there we go. There's our form. Now, the last thing I want to do in this video, at least, is make it so that when we click current job, which isn't even clicking, because we haven't created the function yet, we're probably getting an error saying on change, or what is it, on check doesn't exist, or whatever. Changes markers required. Yeah, so oh, you know what, we didn't bind this to on change. We also didn't create on submit, so we're gonna get a whole slew of errors. But all right, so let's just create those real quick. So we'll bind this by saying this dot on change equals this dot on change dot bind this, and we'll do the same for on submit. Submit. And remember, we also have on check now too, so we want that on check. Okay, so let's create these real quick. So we'll do on submit prevent default, and we'll just console.log submit. That's not important right now. We'll create our on change, which is going to be the same as it always is. It's going to say this dot set state, and we want to pass in e.target.name, set it to e.target.value. All right, then we want to do our on check. All right, so what do we want to do for this on check? Basically, we want to change the disabled state, and we want to change current to the opposite of whatever it is. If it's true, we want to set it to false. If it's false, we want to set it to true. We want to do that for both disabled and current. So we'll say this dot set state. Okay, and this is all component state. This has nothing to do with Redux. And we want to mess with current and disabled. We want to change those to the opposite of whatever they are. So we can simply do disabled set to not this dot state dot disabled. Okay, same thing with current. We want to set this to this dot state dot current. So it's just going to set it to the opposite. It's going to allow us to toggle it. So let's save this. Now when we check the box, it should black out or disable the to field, okay, when we check current, because we have disabled set to the disabled state, okay, and this checkbox is going to toggle this state. So let's see if this works. So we go and click current job, and there we go. So now this is disabled. I can't change it. If I uncheck it, I can. Because if it's a current job, then we don't want to put the to date. You know, we want to say that this is where we currently work. So that's one of the beauties of React, is being able to have interface stuff like this, like interactions like this, which is nice. To do this in vanilla JavaScript would be much more code and much more difficult. All right, so that was kind of a long video. We didn't get to actually add the experience, but we created our interface. The add education is going to basically be the same form, maybe a couple different fields, so that won't be as bad to create. But what I want to do in the next video is make this form work. I want to be able to submit it to an action, a Redux action, that's going to hit the API that we created to add an experience. Okay, and an experience is just an array value in our profile. All right, so we'll do that next.